Wonder Woman issue 6, legacy number 806. This is Tom King and Daniel Sampere on the art. And this is paying off the fact that they built a team of villains to come after Wonder Woman. I kept waiting actually in this issue for the Wonder Girls to show up, and it never happened. So I'm wondering what they're saving those for.
It kind of did.
Oh, it kind of did?
At the end of the fight, someone comes and grabs Steel, Sergeant Steel.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I don't know if that's them though. That's
maybe
to be determined.
It looks like bracelets. Yeah, it looks like bracelets, like Donna wears.
Okay.
So, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, where are the Wonder Girls? Why aren't they like? I know the whole point. This is like the trials of Diana, and it feels very myth making that she fights all of these villains, and it's this big hero moment. Like the labors of Hercules or any other stuff from mythology. But I kept waiting. I'm like, isn't the whole point of their sisterhood is that they're stronger together than Diana is alone? And maybe it builds to that.
It makes sense that they're smart enough that they realize that the villains will be too distracted fighting Diana that they won't even realize that some other allies are doing stuff. Like I totally get that. So this issue takes place around the Washington Monument, and Diana's talking to Steve. Steve ain't feeling so great, but it's partly because Dr. Psycho is beaming in some thoughts, and he even beams in some thoughts into Wonder Woman at one point, which we'll get to that moment. But he beams into Steve, and Steve's like, they're coming. And then glorious full page reveal of Giganta's hand smashing up from underground. And the whole time, of course, the Sovereign is like narrating, he's telling the story to Trinity, and he's explaining, okay, how did we get her under there? Because that's quite tough. Well, Cersei used magic to put her under there. Okay, fair enough.
It's magic. We had to do some really arcane, nasty things to make it work. And you're like, oh, all right, the Sovereign's creepy too, on top of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll be praising the art throughout, but did you like the page of her transforming where it's like a yellow box, a red box, and a blue box of her spinning?
The freaking spin. Like, in the Wonder Woman colors on top of it. Yeah, and just it. Plus, she looks cool with sunglasses on. Like, Diana really pulls it off. And then just her looking, very, very much. I wonder, as I know there's some comic artists that are wrestling fans. She reminds me of Statlander here at the bottom, right? Just, the big shoulders, just looking like a woman that can really throw a forearm. So...
Yeah, so we get this fight scene playing out with Giganta. Obviously, Diana's trying to talk her down as she does. And I think one of the things I really liked about this is that obviously all the villains kind of like get involved in some capacity one by one. I really like that the narration kind of like talks about how they're using each villain. So Silver Swan, right, comes flying in, and her purpose isn't really that anyone thinks she's going to be able to fight Wonder Woman. It's more that she can be this distraction, and that Wonder Woman will have to save her, and that'll distract her enough that they'll be able to do something else. So we get this big set piece in the middle of the issue where they smash into the Washington Monument, and as she's dealing with Silver Swan, Giganta rips up the Washington Monument, right? Picks up overhead, and Dr. Psycho at the same time is beaming his thoughts into Diana to further distract her and make her more vulnerable. And Giganta comes smashing down with this entire monument on Diana's head. Like it's like she's spiking it on top of her, right?
Yeah.
And the next page is okay, Sergeant Steele's up in the top of the Capitol building watching with binoculars. Cersei's now sleeping as a cat because she's drained of energy. Psycho's drained of energy because even been in Wonder Woman's mind because she's so tough for just a second, it's taken it out of him. And the Sovereign's pouring a glass of wine. He's ready to celebrate. But this all builds up to the narration at the bottom of this page, which says, well, the voice came in over the radio from Sergeant Steele, Sovereign, and then next page is a full page spread of Diana with her hands up, holding the monument and stopping it from hitting her, and it says it ain't over. Like that's the message over the radio. We're not done. She's not dead.
A fist pump moment. This would be me. If this was a movie, I'd be on my feet in the theater.
Oh yeah,
and my wife would be yelling at me to sit down. You're embarrassing yourself.
You could imagine like the main theme of a movie, like the brass of the main theme hitting a second it reveals that she's pushing against this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a badass moment. This is the sort of thing that's made this run. Like, it has all the character building and the intrigue and the idea of building the legend of Wonder Woman, but it's these moments in the art where it builds to these payoff moments. Because issue one had that thing where you don't see her the whole issue until that moment she turns around and dodges the bullet. Or not dodges, deflects, sorry, is the word.
Deflects it, yeah.
This is kind of similar to that. This was such a fist-pumping moment. I was so into it. And then she pushes the thing all the way, but you get these great... like red, like empty boxes that just kind of like frame the action as the monument's flying towards Giganta and like sort of lands on her. Really good stuff. And
what they didn't count on too, what I like about the Sovereign and the narration was they were going to use Silver Swan basically as a distraction. They didn't care if Silver Swan died.
Yeah.
Right? She was expendable. But to Diana, because Diana has so much compassion, especially for somebody like Silver Swan, someone that she knows, right? Because she calls her Vanessa. She doesn't address her as Silver Swan. She addresses by her actual name. What they didn't count on is that, like, if Diana was fighting for herself, the monument might have hit her, and that might have been the end of the fight. But the fact that she was standing up for her friend Vanessa...
She was protecting someone else, and that gave her...
gave her the boost, and that's what they didn't count on.
Gave her the determination. I like that a lot, too. I think... that added a lot of emotional weight to it. I mean, it was a really cool, badass moment, but that added this extra layer of like, okay, this is really setting up who she is as a character and reinforcing it.
And then it shows me that King is, as much as this is a story that is, there's the political intrigue and stuff, it's also building the legend of Wonder Woman in a way that we haven't had in a while. Because we've been told Diana's, she's the princess of the Amazons, and she's this person from myth, and I mean, even in that arc where she died and came back through the God channels, right? This makes her seem larger than life than any of those things did, right? The way that she's able to stop this giant from dropping the Washington Monument on her to save somebody, this is a pretty seminal moment in Diana's history going forward now.
This is what happens when someone is writing a story about a character, wants to make them feel important, but understands how to do it. And it's something that happens every so often with every big DC character, every Marvel character too, I'm sure as well. But every so often you'll get a story that does a good job of actually making the characters feel important. It's kind of like when you're doing a Superman story and you're doing something like War World, and the whole thing's about how Superman's spirit and inspiring those other characters to be what they should be is what the main point of it is. This is kind of really sort of showing her spirit not breaking. That's very much what a lot of this is. And funnily enough, on that page, after she's thrown the monument back at Giganta, you've got the Sovereign like smashing his wine glass in frustration, like he's just livid.
He crushes it with his hand, like But I also like on that bottom of that page that you talked about where she throws the monument at Giganta, and it says, "We can say all these years later, all we can say all these years later is that she was Wonder Woman, and that was quite enough." And I feel like that's the tag on this first arc, is she is Wonder Woman, and that is enough. That is just like her bare minimum is better than everybody's full capacity,
and then the last hurdle, if you will, shows up in the form of Grail. And they really sell Grail as a big deal, because Diana looks up in the bottom of that page and looks like, oh shit, like after all this, I've got something else to deal with. And it's Grail walking towards her. And it feels like, two titans coming to meet. And the fight scene takes place over several pages. The narration mentions casually at one point that they fight for over an hour. It's very bloody. Diana's got blood streaming all over her throughout these pages.
But she makes the goddess bleed too, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So.
And it's while all this is happening, there's a couple of 9-panel grids, and this is where Steel gets taken. Where, that could be Donna. Like, I didn't notice the bracelet before, but like it's open to interpretation, because all it is a panel of Steel's face, and there's a hand over his mouth, and just you see a little bit of the other arm coming in, and you see that there's dark hair, which is why I think you're saying Donna. That's
why I'm saying Donna, because I don't think Yara wears the bracelets.
Yeah. But like then all the 8 panels around this, like, so it's a 9-panel grid, and it's the middle panel that's that, and then the other 9 panels are just the fight that's happening, chaos, and then it keeps going to the next page where again it's 9 panels all of the border panels of all the fight, and then the middle panel is just that same spot that Steel was standing in, but it's now empty. So it's showing that in all of this chaos, he's been nabbed. But yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, the fight's really good. Even the final blow is a good bit of fun where at the start of the fight, Grail chose to throw down her weapon because Diana didn't have one because she wanted a fair fight. But towards the end, she goes to pick up the weapon to do the killing blow, and there's a great, almost full-page spread of Diana just punching her straight in the face, which is very satisfying.
While saying no thank you, which I yell at my dogs all the time, so it's very funny.
But Diana collapses to her knees in the pouring rain, the blood streaming down her, and then collapses on top of Grail because this is all taken out of her. So it feels like an epic fight. Like I think some comic books, obviously, like really focus on like a fight scene for most of the issues. Sometimes depending where they fall in the arc. A good example is maybe that last issue of World's Finest, not this week's, but last month's. Yeah. Where it was kind of a weak issue overall because it was fine, but it was mostly just all this fighting that didn't really have much rhyme or reason to it. This was so well structured and it built to crescendos. Everything had stakes. It felt like the narration was revealing more things at just the right time to make the fight itself feel more epic. That moment where you realize she's deflected or blocked this, killing blow with the monument feels like a huge big deal, and it really props her up as feeling really special. All this is really good. It is worth mentioning here that they point out that issue 8 is going to be kind of like a fill-in issue, and they'll be back for the next arc. So interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, we'll see.
I also want to talk about real quick in this final section of the fight where Grail's kind of gloating, right, and talking about I'd heard that you have a divine father as well, but I see that you're always nothing but dirt. Right, and this is where she goes to swing her blade down, and Diana deflects it with her bracelets. And says, that no, she was made from clay. Because they say my mother made me from water and clay, and then she says and hope, and that's where she gets the counter strike. And that's another defining moment for her about this. I am the women before me. I am my mother's daughter. I'm not just I'm not a demigod, right? I am Diana of Themyscira, and it just makes for this great moment, when she finally kneels down and collapses on top of this god, yes, Grail's half Amazonian, but she's also Darkseid's daughter, so for Diana to do this, after everything she's been through, to use that as her rallying cry, that hope is what drives her, is a real fun moment.
Yeah, I just love the moment of her almost just sitting in the rain to let the rain wash off the blood. It's just a really the art throughout this. I mean, we've mentioned some of the bigger moments, but I think Simpere's obviously got a very pretty art style to look at, but I think one of the things that really sells it is just how good the acting in the faces is. Like between Diana herself being concerned or worried during certain moments of the fight or showing determination, but even just Steel's smug look in his face as he's watching this, or the anger on the Sovereign's face, or everyone is emoting, everyone is helping tell the story with their with the art and their facial language and the facial expressions. It's so good. You could definitely do this as a silent issue with just the sound effects, and you still get the point across. Yeah, although that's the thing, is the narration, the story that the Sovereign's telling, it also adds so much. I like every element of this book. No part of it to me feels like it's not contributing to the overall feeling that it's creating, which is
for sure.
Great. Yeah, because sometimes you read a book that's really good, you're like, yeah, but there's that one element that I could have just lived without that, or it's just it's harmless, but it's not really adding anything to it. I didn't feel that with this, and I've typically not with this run so far. This is technically the end of the first arc. Obviously, it's not the end of the story, but it's this is where they'll cut it off for the first collection.
And the thing with the coloring too that I noticed in those 9-panel grids, that it's basically everything that's kind of a blow for Grail is kind of tinged with red, but everything that's a blow for Diana, it's got a yellow to it, and so I love that storytelling via color too. Yeah,
that's fun. And then also the last panel on that first 9-panel grid, where Diana knees her in the face and the chin, it just goes to complete solid yellow and red. It's like a silhouette. So
like I thought that was going to be the KO because that's how video game fights end. You know, so the fact that it kept going too, I was like, oh man, okay, cool.
Yeah,
this is just top-notch work.
The second 9-panel grid, there's a panel at the bottom where Grail's just holding Diana up by her hair. She just sort of like grabbed the top of her hair. And I don't have anything to say other than it just looks really good. It looks so goddamn good.
You feel the physicality in this fight as, you know, through those type of panels.
It feels brutal. You know? And I wouldn't say, like, a lot of these villains that are teaming up here, like, they're all various levels of, like, oh, yeah, I know them from Wonder Woman stories gone past and whatnot. Grail's probably the one that I care about the least. Yeah. But, like, again, it made her feel like a big deal in this issue.
It's the fact that she's the physical threat that's being brought in when, you know, Diana's been mentally exhausted, right? This was meant to be the Sovereign's Bane moment where Diana's been broken. Yeah. This was supposed to be the back breaking. But no, Diana perseveres. You know, Diana's stronger than this. So, but yeah, man, just the Sovereign's dialogue throughout too is, he even says, and that's where we made the mistake, you know, of, you know, so we had us believe, so she had us believe, right, that she was done. This was it. She was exhausted. You know, dear God, what a fool we were. So even though that it seems like Diana, you know, she's passed out, she's done this, it's like, oh no, we completely underestimated her even at this point, that they took all the heavier hitters, but Diana still has bigger parts of her story to come.
Yeah, so, and if it is the Wonder Girls that took Steel, that makes me think that when we get to the next like arc, it'll be more about Diana and the others going on the offensive. Like up until now, everything's been very reactive to what everything else is causing to them. I wonder if this is them being proactive now, getting into the next arc. So, very cool.
So this next story sounds like a lot of fun. So it says, we take a break next issue for Wonder Woman, Superman, and the Space Mall. So I jumped ahead, and I don't want to throw a wet blanket on anybody. It's still Tom King writing, but do you know who's doing the art, Pete?
Oh, God.
It's Gilliam March.
I knew you were going to say Gilliam March. It's always Gilliam March. Well, do you know what? I'm glad they're not doing the next proper issue then with him. I'm glad that it's like a month off for Sempier to like catch up and, you know, keep him on the actual main chapters. I wish it was someone better to fill in, obviously, always, but...
Yeah. It doesn't seem like there's a backup either, so it might just be a full story, too.
That makes sense.
So,
it just, you know, 30 pages of whatever.
Yeah. So when it said that, I was like, oh, I'm going to look forward and see, because that sounds like a fun story, and I was like, ugh. It's a little bit of a damper, but it's still King, so...
Yeah, it may still be fun, but yeah. Speaking of fun, there's backup, of course, again. This is back in time a little bit to when Lizzie is a toddler, or just a little bit older than that, and John and Damien are babysitting, and the running gag here is that she just won't go to sleep. So John's tried to put her to sleep, but she gets back up, and she starts nagging them about things. Yeah. Damien tells her a bedtime story about he actually solved Final Crisis.
Was he even in Final Crisis?
He had debuted by then, yeah. This was after Batman and Son and stuff.
Yeah, but still, like, I don't even remember him, like, having an impact. So him putting himself front and center is so funny.
It's been too long, but I especially liked how he's doing the dialogue. So it's like the bubbles are coming out of Darkseid, but it's his wacky version of what he'd say. But my favorite part was when he says that he showed up. He's like, "I'm Robin, as in the Robin, no Batman required." Like, all right, David.
So you know what that means? Yeah, I think you do. In Darkseid, he's like, because this is a younger, right? So like the last couple stories with this is John and Damien are, you know, significantly older than they are now, you know, because Lizzie's kind of half-grown teenage in some of them.
This is more like the age she was in the first backup.
Yeah, and so it's closer to the Damien now, and the voice is very spot on to what I would imagine Damien.
So Damien brags that he's got her to sleep, but then she's basically followed him in from behind, and she's still sitting there wanting to do stuff, and then she's like, "Hey, what about the moon? Let's go to the moon." Smash cut to a full page spread of them sitting looking tired and bored on the moon, except her jumping around with her bunny, who's also in an astronaut suit.
Not just bunny, that's a stuffed kanga.
Oh, kanga. Yeah, sorry, kangaroo, yes.
Yeah.
and they're just sort of like, wait, we were supposed to have her in bed by like 8 p.m. What time is it now? It's like, well, we're on the moon, so technically time zones are a bit irrelevant up here. So they take her back down. She finally seemingly goes to sleep. John and Damien both fall asleep on the couch, and the final little joke is that as they're both passed out on the couch, she climbs up onto the middle of the couch and starts looking at stuff on the tablet again. The idea being that she outlasted both of them. So it's humorous. It's a fun little backup. But,
there's a runner of that when he's telling the story Final Crisis, he says Darkseid has math, and that's how he was going to destroy them. And so when she comes in after he thought he put her to bed, she goes, Darkseid's in my closet, and he has math. And I thought that was so funny.
It's one of those jokes where when he said he has math or something, I didn't get it for like a second. I was like, math? I was like, oh, the anti-life equation.
Yeah. And then so as he's tucking her in after the moon, she says, did you check the closet? Yes. Was Darkseid there? No. Was there any math? No math. Check twice. And again, these are just little small human moments out of the superheroes, and I feel Tom King's really refined that through this. So and I like the art here better from Ortega, right? It's a lot better when Lizzie's younger, because I feel like that art style kind of fits the kitty vibe a little bit more. And so like the stuff on the moon just looks great because it's, her big smile, them both looking completely defeated. The body language is all there.
Yeah. I had no idea Belen Ortega was a woman, actually. Someone retweeted her, and I was like, oh, Belen's a woman's name. Okay, fair enough.
And I'm going to say, the only reason I know is because every time we go through these, I open up League of Comic Geeks now.
Oh,
and they usually have
there's
a photo now, so...
fair enough.
But yeah.
The art sort of fits the fun vibe that it's going for. It's definitely a bit of a palate cleanser based, compared to the main story, which is obviously this ultra serious, everything's important kind of thing. This is more lighthearted and fun. It's kind of interesting that King's the one writing both, that he's doing both sides of it. Yeah. All right, what are you rating Wonder Woman? That's your 6.
Do I go too high or do I dial it back a little bit?
I don't know.
Because theoretically I could give this a 10.
Oh.
Yeah. But judging based off that, I'll just go 9.5.
Judging based on what? My noise?
Just based off of the noise. I thought if I had said 10, you wouldn't But you did it a little bit more down towards there. I'm like, okay, I'll temper my expectations a bit. But this was a very good issue.
I feel like you're maybe overreading into things on my various vocal noises. But honestly, I mean, I wish I had a spreadsheet up in front of me of what I've rated all the issues.
Me too.
For comparison's sake. I think I want to say I give issue 1 out of 10, and maybe one of the ones in the middle. I think I will agree with the 9.5, but goddamn, it's this has been a wonderful arc. I've enjoyed everything, and obviously it's not really over by any means because it's just kind of split into like mini arcs. Yeah. So, looking forward to it. One of my favorite books on a monthly basis right now. So. Yep.
Like I said, I led up to this. This was the last thing I read. So I read this last night. It was about time for bed. And I was starting to doze off, and not because I was enjoying it. It was real late. It was later than normal. And once I started getting to the fight scene with Grail, it popped me back up. So it's very rare for a comic book to bring me back up, to get excited to keep going. Because normally I would just put the iPad down, and go to sleep. I was like, no, I'm gonna finish this. So that's pretty. That doesn't happen very often.